Is this getting recorded? Do you want the mic on?
Yes, please.
Make sure everybody's audio's on. Too much stuff. You ready? All right. Call this meeting to order. We can stand for the pledge, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, go ahead with the roll call.
Commissioner Robbins?
Here.
Commissioner Walter is absent. Commissioner Bunnick?
Here.
Commissioner Wessel?
Here.
Commissioner Campbell?
Here.
Commissioner Alguier?
Yes, here.
Chairman York?
Here. All right, thank you. Next up, we have our agenda in front of us. Do you have any additions or deletions? No, I'll take a motion. Commissioner Wessel?
Move to present the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and supported. Discussion? Not. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carried 6-0. That, we're up to our first public comment. Any members that wish to give any priorities for the board on budget? All right. What's that? Okay. All right, thank you. Commissioner comments? Commissioner comments? All right. Not, we'll move on to action item, discussion. We have one agenda item for today, Board of Commissioner priorities. I believe what I'll do here is I'll just do a round robin. Everybody kind of their priorities, state down the priorities, and then we can kind of, everybody states that, and then we can kind of dig into the nuts and bolts of it. And we've got our finance director here that's got questions she'll hopefully be able to answer as well. So, do you want to add anything to that?
I would consider this not just priorities regarding the budget itself, but things that you might want to discuss in our future work sessions would also be items for consideration today.
All right, Commissioner Bunnick, you want to start us off?
Well, I mean, I just saw it as a budget workshop, and so I was considering that to be our major priority, that we look at the budget, we spent some time, I spent a lot of time trying to classify it and set it up, so, and hopefully we can do some good work on it. That's really what I saw as the priority. I didn't really think about how we were going to do other things, so I guess that was my misunderstanding of the priorities.
All right, Commissioner Robbins?
I would pass for now.
All right, Mr. Wessel?
Well, I assumed that you wanted to hear from each individual commissioner on priorities, and I did spell out 9, and I'd like to distribute them and just speak to them real quickly.
All right, go for it.
Sure. Because I'm glad you let me do it before Alan.
You could get timed out.
Do I get to go before Alan?
You should have sat on the other side, I guess.
Well, I put the first priority is the capital improvement planning and stewardship of our facilities and our properties. I think we always talk about that, but we always have it in a notebook, and we never have a timetable and never build it into the budget. And that was one thing I thought we ought to do. Second one was I have the software adoption and acquisition that we talked about. I did put on 3, maintain our services. 4, I put as a goal, and I think our public expects it, to efficiency and responsibility in our spending money. And I really would like us, I did see the Department of Treasury data sheet on expenditures by departments and by elected officials, and whether there is questions about that or not. I think that would be a good workshop session. I did get a chance to meet with the treasurer in response to a question I had him about millages and millage rates across the state, and I found that interesting. I put one that probably won't be fully supported, but provide leadership for housing and planning in the county. I think our neighbors and our townships and our villages need that. I put technology improvements, especially in the community room, our sound system in the meeting room, and cybersecurity as a priority. I've put building security enhancements. We need to consider that. I know the judge has a quarterly meeting and we always talk about that, but it's just a meeting and we don't take the next step. And whether or not we need more security, I think we ought to plan on that. I put continue to pay off MERS liability. We're in good shape, but that all depends on the market. And so I put that on there. And finally, I put recognizing the need to support, recruit, retain staff. We should work with HR and our administrator in a review of salaries and wage scales. So those are 9 things that all are budget related that I think we ought to have some conversation about.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Campbell,
Trust me, Jay?
go for it. You got the floor.
Actually, a lot of ours overlap. I had a little different order. I started off with keeping the rise in base expenditures as low as possible. And you know, we always start off this budget, and this one is included with a transfer in. And this year, the transfer in, which is really from our fund balance, is over $1 million, $1,125,000 about. And I'd like to get, we probably can't this year, I'd like to get to a spot where before we get to this position, we've dealt with that transfer in and understand that that's a goal is to prevent those, and then have, once we get even as far as revenues and expenses, because I think this process should start with revenues. Once you get even, and then maybe you get a little ahead, then you can work on your transfer ins. Then you can work on the projects that might require transfer in, and if you need to do that. And you also know how much money you got left for your CIPs and how to prioritize them. But as it is now, I think we're starting from the other side, needing to get that transfer in down. So I'll go through these kind of quickly. I was worried about all the overtime in there, only in the point that we've increased hours largely. We provided really the equivalent of several new employees in this building. And so I think with all those, the extra manpower is involved, we should be able to cut down our overtime. That should be a priority. As I've said before, I'd like to start the path towards following our own financial and investment policies, which goes along with what you're talking about as far as incorporating the CIP into our budgets. Anyways, and it also, once you do that, you start understanding a little bit more about what you have for fund balances and where they should be in percentage-wise of spending from one year to the next. I just like to start moving down that. I like to properly fund our county parks, and I think they've been given a back seat. I think our county parks are jewels that we've not uncovered, and I think there's a lot of jewels we don't even know about. For instance, our frontage on Glen Lake, which we have done nothing with. I'm not asserting blame on anyone on that. I'm just saying I'd like to see a certain awakening and realizing that. Our 18 acres we own at the corner of Bulgai and Fouch Road, which backs up to the Leelanau Trail. That screams park. That screams public usage. And let's have a discussion about it and maybe put it into some of our long-range plans. I'm getting done. transparency in our accounting, not that it's not transparent, I'm not blaming our accounting department at all, it's just our system, and that's what you talked about, is improving our system so that our citizens and those who like to follow us, and by the way, I appreciate folks who follow us and what we do, that's the number one. Anyways, for citizens of this country, that's a wonderful legacy, and I appreciate it when people do that. It'd be nice if they could get online, see what bills are being paid, what haven't been paid, follow our budget progress as it goes along, and childcare vouchers. That's not going to be an easy lift, but I still have it on my list, and I'd like to start lifting a little bit on it. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Algar.
We've been talking about the need to update our software for years. I think when you guys were here 2 years ago, we were talking about it then. So that's a project we know is needed and important, and I think the time must have come at this point. The need for livable wages for our people will, at some, not only is it important in honoring the people who work for us, but it has already become an issue in attracting people to work here. You have to be able to afford to live if you're going to work here. I didn't say that quite right, but you know what I mean. We always try to put some money in MERS at the end of the year. Let's hope the broadband is covered with BEAD. It's too much money. I can't even ask the county to front that, but that has to be solved some way for us to complete that broadband project, and that's an ongoing problem we have to solve. I think we have to keep in mind that other services that our people depend on may be losing funding. It's very dicey whether Meals on Wheels will be getting the funding it has gotten in the past. That money comes out of our senior services budget, but it's possible we're going to have to increase. And we will have to decide whether we are going to help our seniors live in their homes. Those meals are critical. Not only are they healthy food for people who need it, but they are also health checks. Someone is checking on our elderly neighbors to make sure they're okay. And that's really, really, really important. So I think we have to keep in mind, health department has been cut $300,000 so far. They're cutting school nurses. So far, the Northport School is kicking in. They have cut funding for emergency preparedness work. So if that's going to happen, it won't be done by the health department anymore. That funding is gone. Disease prevention programs, that money is cut. So far, they've had to cut 3 positions, and they're hoping. They're in the state of hoping, but services are going to be reduced, and some of them are critical for our people. And at some point, we just have to be aware that we may have to step in to help people, especially for something like Meals on Wheels. Weatherization help for low-income people. If you have an older couple in a home and their heating system doesn't work anymore, and there's no longer a program to step in and help them, are we, as a county family, going to be the ones to start stepping in We used to do that with poor farms. We used to do that. The first order of business of the county board of commissioners in 1850, it's either 4 or 6, I'll have to look up, was to allot $5,000 for the families and widows of injured and Civil War soldiers who had died. And at every meeting until the 1920s, the superintendents reported on needy people in the family and how we could help. Replace someone's broken tractor, buy some seed so Farmer Joe can plant his crop. Widow Smith does not have food for her children, and those needs were attended to by the county. And we've been able to withdraw, but there may be a time when we have to keep in mind that we may be needed again, because this is our money, our family's money, and we have to make sure that we're all taken care of. So let's just keep that in mind. So I don't want to go out and spend all our money either. We don't know what's coming.
All right, thank you. Well, from what it seems like, I think Commissioner West and Commissioner Campbell were the only ones that came prepared with priorities, so.
I have a list. I just mentioned my list.
I did have a few as well. I mean, not as detailed as them two did, but I think the biggest thing for me, because I was, looking through the budget as well, and I think the big thing to what Commissioner Campbell said as well, where we start out is with the revenue. And looking through that, I think we need to dig into that a little bit deeper and make sure, we have a good understanding of that so we can better budget for projects going forward in that sense, and make sure we have the revenue coming in to even fund some of the stuff that we want to do at the county here. The other big thing that I feel like I want to have a part of this budget is the planning, and a lot of that has to do with the CIP that's already been brought up. But I would like to see, even with projects, if we can start with a CIP, it's a well-formed document that we can work off of for projects and start working off of those, and even schedule things out 2 years in advance. Projects that we want to work on, set money aside. It will help, from my understanding, help our treasurer out to invest some of that money, to set it aside, where we don't necessarily have to go digging into contingency or the general fund to pull that money to do projects. And I think that's something that I want to see a priority in this budget, to start setting money aside for projects going forward. I just think we need a better planning process, I guess, for a lot of that. And I think the CIP is a good document to work off of that. It gives us a good idea of projects that are coming down the line, because those are department heads that submitted those. And that's what they see coming down years down the road that they want to see improvements in. So, and the other one for me too is software. I think that's something that even, last year out campaigning, there was a lot of citizens that were just felt like we need to upgrade a lot of the county here, the software. I know it's a big investment, but I think it's something that I certainly want as a part of this budget process to start budgeting for, to start planning for that. I think it'll help our constituents out, to just be able to gain access and understand the process a lot more if we have something that's much more compatible online. Whatever that entails, I know that's beyond my pay scale to understand that, but I think those are some of my priorities that I want to incorporate into this budget going forward, so we can plan better, I guess. So those are a few of mine, and guess I'll ask the administrator, do those make sense? Is there any questions you have for the board, I guess? Any clarification or anybody? No.
No, I think that those are pretty, that gives us quite a lot to work on. I think I understand most of everything that's been, maybe one question for Commissioner Campbell. You mentioned concern about overtime and adding extra employees. Those seem to me to be two different things, or were they really one?
In particular, the employee part was only that when I looked at our staffing levels, I don't have the background to look at that and say, is this the same as last year, or are there more employees added to it?
So maybe would you like to see as a comparison to full-time equivalent employees by department?
That would, at least we know where they are, and then we can ask the question, why are they needed? But if you don't know they're requested or in the budget.
And then with respect to overtime, just the amount that's budgeted and whether there's consideration, should we add an employee if we're getting too much, if there's too much overtime, or is there a reason why it should be overtime and not adding employees? Is that?
My question has to do with the last Teamsters contract in which hours were increased from 36 to 40. And there's, we're dealing not with our money, we're dealing with everyone's money. And I think that's one way to show that indeed we did increase the hours, but there is some benefit as far as more is getting accomplished, so during regular work hours, so the need for overtime has diminished.
Okay, so I'm understanding that.
Theoretically.
Usually it takes 2 or 3 years to get that
And
person.
when you mention accounting transparency, I think you're talking not just internal to the building, but external to the citizenry. So, for example, they can have a dashboard or something that shows budget progress or revenue spending progress, that kind of thing.
Exactly. That was my thought on it. And some of that's going to be software related too. I understand we're very limited with
No
what
question.
we've got and what we've had, but there's, as Ty had mentioned, there's an effort to move in a new direction.
We've been talking for 2 years.
And I think that's all the questions then that I have. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Anybody else have any? Go back to Commissioner Bunnick or Commissioner Rollins, see if you got any questions. Is this a time where we want to open the floor to have any questions to go through the budget with Kathy here, or Finance Director, or how we want to do that, or does anybody else have any priorities they want to address, or?
I would ask Jim, do you have things you would like to address to us as far as within that budget, what's going to be difficult to accomplish, what you're worried about, what you're happy about, things like that?
Well, not really today. What I was hoping to hear today was more of an emphasis on things that you, for example, you specifically mentioned, we find it properly funding county parks. I think a discussion about that today would be very helpful, because what I'm looking for really is information from the board on what sort of things you would like to see the administration working on to provide you with information and data. For example, there's quite a lot in the CIP regarding parks. So we could do that now or wait until the time we're going to have a budget work session on the CIP itself. Some of those things that you might want to see incorporated into this year's budget. I also very much like Chair Yoder's suggestion that we take a look at, potentially, maybe we're not going to do this in this budget year, but in 2027, we want to set aside, we want to be able to plan to set aside X number of dollars to be accomplishing, some major enhancement of the parks. There's a Miles Kimmerly, for example, has a master plan for the development of that park. Maybe that would be something you want to look at as a 2-year project in 27 and 28 to accomplish that. What is, I think, round numbers, $1 million worth of expenditures. That's the kind of thing I think makes sense for you to be discussing during these budget hearings. What are really your priorities for accomplishing your goals for the county? How we're going to address something like child care vouchers. Do you want to do that Is there a majority sense on the board that you want to continue with that? If there is such a thing, what would be the restrictions or limitations? For example, it would be one thing for us to provide vouchers for licensed childcare. It'd be a completely different thing if you were wanting to provide vouchers for non-licensed care. I don't know how we would do that, frankly, if we could even do it, if it would be even legal to do it. But that would be a very labor-intensive thing for us to be dealing with. It would be much less labor-intensive if we were dealing with licensed childcare, because you already have some entity, the state of Michigan, that has indicated these are people that are qualified to do this service, for example. So those are the kind of things that I'd like to see us, I was hoping we could discuss at this meeting, because this, as I said, will help give direction to staff as to where to go. For example, with childcare, one of the things we need to do, for sure, would be to get a legal opinion on exactly what are the steps that would be necessary to put that into effect. And based upon the comments that have already been made, that's a direction that I'm already heading in terms of getting that kind of an opinion from legal counsel. But I would need to have a lot clearer idea of the direction you want to go to give direction to the attorney.
I would like to interject at this point. I don't know if there's a majority that is wanting vouchers,
Right.
but that is not at all what parenting communities was supposed to be. And it's not at all what people voted for. So we would have to be extremely careful. Parenting communities' focus is working with families of young children, being there for a new mom with all the questions she has and the father has, new parents. They even provide counseling if it's needed or necessary to work with the family dynamics. If you've got a mom with depression, postpartum depression, since you're closest to that.
Didn't know what that finger was.
Yeah, not that that's your issue, but you're closer to that world. And then working with families and working and helping children with developmental issues in the families and connecting families so that they're not alone. The program was not at all, we're going to give you handout money. It was working on young children in that very important developmental stage and young families. So I sure would not endorse taking off on developing childcare vouchers without a whole lot of discussion and feedback, because that is way far away from what parenting communities has ever been about. We just had a little extra money in the budget, and we haven't voted on that. Also, we did not pass that. So thank you for your care and attention. And I'd like to say too, this will be my 5th budget. It's nothing compared to a couple of you. But when we've done the budget, our attention first has been on what is it going to cost to fund all the functions of this government and serve our people well and pay our employees. And then do we have anything left for special projects? And then we always do, like the software system that we've been working on, getting ready for. So I guess I want to know where we stand before I start talking about wanting to do extra things. I don't know what we can afford. We've
And
never
that's-
been about,
That's one thing that again, is ultimately your decision. But it's just like when you're doing your own budget. If you start from your expenses you may end up disappointed. You really do need to start from your revenues and understand what it is what's your potential income. And I think you're absolutely correct. That has been the past approach has been to focus on expenditures rather than what your revenues are.
Well, I guess I meant, do we have the revenue to cover our expenses? And if we have any left over, then yeah. So I guess I want to know where we are, where we stand. Are we going to have any extra money? I don't know. So I need to understand that before I talk about spending more.
Sure.
Mr. Money?
Yeah, well, I mean, as I went through the budget, I mean, the things that I looked at were, and I'm going to go by that as priorities because I really wanted to focus on what we can ask for from the Grand Traverse Band. So I had done things like the HR person wanted to do first aid training. And I think that would be a great thing to ask for from the Grand Traverse Band. Also, they wanted to do an Epson scanner. We could ask for that. There's also the emergency management has talked about, we need to renew all the pads, for the what is it, AEDs? All the pads are going to go bad. They have a lifetime on them, I guess. And plus they've used some up,
Pads, what pad?
I think it's for shocking. They have those pads that go on it.
Oh, I see.
So they all have to be replaced, and we put them on everywhere in all the buildings. And so those have to be replaced. So that would be something. So to me, we need to have departments focus on, I would say, asking for Grand Traverse Band funds. And try to use them what they're supposed to be used for, not what we think is a nice thing to do. Also, I had looked at the senior services, the early childhood. The early childhood does have vouchers in their budget, $33,000 in that budget. So there's also recycling I wanted to look at. I wanted to look at the contingency funds, senior services, and of course, maintenance is asking for a lot of things. So, I do want to go through the supplemental information, and I would hope we'd do that, which I think we would, but those were the things I had prioritized. Put tabs on my.
Can I just clarify? We passed money for the childcare seats, but we didn't get to the voucher one.
It's in their budget.
It's in the proposed.
It's in their
Oh,
proposed
it's
budget.
proposed, but we didn't pass it. So,
No, we haven't yet.
It was also in the unmet needs, but we didn't do that either.
Commissioner Wessel?
Yeah, there have been very few meetings lately that we haven't talked about the Grand Traverse Band money. And I think we have to be cautious about how we tell them how they ought to spend that money. And as a part of this process, I would think we want to invite somebody from the band to talk about a 2% program and what their priorities in working with us are. They do not want to spend money on general fund expenditures like typewriters and printers that they think that we ought to be doing. They want. They want to make an impact on the community. And I think we have to be careful as we tread down that road, that we work with them and not direct or try to direct them, because they won't be directed. I mean, there are lots of people in this region that they can give their money to. And if we want to receive 2% funds, we need to make sure that we are thoughtful about the process and work with our community partners. Gwen talked about safety net needs that are going to be clearly hurting us this year. The tribe would like to be a part of that food insecurity. The tribe would like to continue to be able to support Leelanau Christian Neighbors, which is a real asset to our families. So I think we must be cautious, and I would respectfully, I think we ought to stop talking about how they ought to be doing it, and we ought to talk, how do we work with them?
Yeah, nobody's talking about how they should do it. I've never once said how they should do it. All I'm saying is what we should ask for. That's not telling them anything.
Well,
That's totally different.
One year, all we asked for was supplies for here, and we didn't get a thing.
I wouldn't doubt that, but everybody around us did.
No,
We're not the only ones
no,
asking.
they did projects to help people.
All right, Commissioner Robbins?
Okay, question I have is, we're going back and forth here, and I look at this as the wish book here, that every department wants, but no one's talking about what we have for revenue coming in, so we can work on a wish book. I mean, it was my understanding that there's supposed to be 2 or 3 meetings between our treasurer and finance director. I don't know if they took place before this book came out, and it would help that, we have the book here, but I'd like to hear, I don't see anything documented, or I don't know if there's gonna be a presentation on what's the revenue coming in. And before we start on this, we need to know what's coming in.
And that is one of the things that we're planning on having as one of our work sessions. We put this, again, emphasizing what I was hoping we would get from this is an understanding of what your priorities are, so we could then start working on them. As far as revenue goes, I'd like to address again what Commissioner Bunnick says, I believe is absolutely correct. For example, I know on both the AED pads and the CPR training, I believe both of those narratives talk about the availability of grant funding, whether it's from the Grand Traverse Band or even elsewhere. And that's one thing that the reason I suggest we be revenue driven in our budget, or consider that, is that we could, for example, budget, we're going to get X number of dollars in grant funding from some source and match that against the projects that these departments want. If we don't get that grant funding, then we don't pursue the project. That's the kind of thing where we can use the budget as a planning tool to address. Again, though, we can tell the departments that if that's what they want, you have to pursue a grant. If you get it, that money will then be used for that project that you wish to pursue. We have, as part of our budget, both a revenue side and an expense side to match that project to each other, rather than anticipating it's going to be done, from either contingency or fund balance. That, to me, is not the way to do a budget.
What makes it really, I think this is a difficult budget to understand anyways, but there again, that's probably me. There's folks around in this room who understand exactly where everything is. But my difficulty in understanding this budget are the nuances that have been built into it for years. And I've come to understand them a little bit, but, not to the point where I actually feel them, if you understand what I mean. Like you do with your home budget, and you just know you're either in trouble or you can go out and have a big dinner, Like, for instance, our tax revenues, they're budgeted to go up, like, I don't know, it looks like about 2.5% this year. Well, we had the equalization report. I guarantee you, that's not, they're gonna go up a lot more than that. It's just gonna happen. So how do you factor that in? And a lot of folks budget high and come in low. I don't know who does it and where those all come in, but between Kathy and our clerk, I think they do. So I look at a budget face value, And my hair goes straight up, what little I have, but it goes straight up. Because I don't know those nuances. And like I said, if you just look at this budget right now, you'd say, well, we got to slash and burn. But I think there's probably another $200,000 or $300,000 in tax revenue that doesn't show up there. I was thinking of something else. Oh, this is a big number. ARPA was in for over $800,000 in here. In emergency services.
It was an expenditure for a couple cabinets. So we recognize the revenue in the revenue section from ARPA funds, and those are drained now. And we have the expenditure in the emergency management. We accounted for those expenditures through that department, but that won't roll, that's a zero.
Okay, there's one less heart attack for me. I was trying to figure out where that was coming from. Okay. But anyways, there's, the other thing in here, we have, as everyone here knows, we're in budget negotiations, serious budget negotiations. We haven't accounted for anything retroactive, which would be really in this year's budget, which will affect next year's budget, because we're talking about how much money is going to get carried over, and there's nothing in here, I do not believe there's anything in here, correct me if I'm wrong, for an increase in law enforcement wages for next year.
Correct. The only wage increase that's in this proposal is the negotiated Teamster at 3%.
Right.
So non-union, excuse
So
me.
Kathy, come to the table.
Oh, I'm sorry.
These two.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I just want to hear you later.
That'd be good,
From the
sure,
audience.
sure.
From the audience, okay. The only wage increase that is currently reflected in the proposed budget is the negotiated Teamster 3%. It is a negotiated contract, it is in there. So non-union is not in here. The FOPLC that I believe you're ratifying tonight is not in here. And then POAM, the road patrol deputies, will be negotiated this fall. So those are not in this budget.
But that's why it's difficult for me to look at it and well, this number automatically is, I don't know what it'll be, 3%, 4%, that's what things have been going, but that's a big number when you talk about our biggest budget across the street. So how do those two balance each other, I expect, but if you just look at the budget, you wouldn't know that. So anyways, that's I have a difficult time, because it's maybe I've read a lot of budgets and I just don't, I can't calculate those in just by looking at them.
Mr. Bunning?
Yeah, I mean, because they're being negotiated, we can't put them in. Otherwise, you're saying that we're not going to negotiate, this is what we're doing. So it's just something you have to wait till it's negotiated before you can put it in the budget. You have to assume it's going to be something, but I think that's what the balance forward hopefully could cover.
Yeah, I'm not saying anyone did anything wrong, I'm trying to figure the dang thing out.
Right.
And it's one more X that I don't have a Y for,
There are a lot of those during the year.
All right. A few Zs, hopefully.
Usually we try to have an extra million in there because crap always happens.
What are you looking for, Jim? You're looking for, what are our priorities? You didn't get an answer on childcare. And maybe it's going to require a vote, but probably we're going to need another member if it does require a vote, if it goes in that direction. Or what do you think? And what's the solution for that?
One solution would be, again, is to direct the administration to give you some data on that, that's what you don't have right now. You give you some data on, take the assumption that we want to move in that direction. And I don't know whether there's a general consensus that maybe we would do that under certain conditions. That's the kind of thing I would like to hear from you, and then we can come back to you with data and a proposal on what could be done. given the conditions that you've set out. That's the kind of thing that we can, as an administration, work with. Part of the problem, there's that old saying of nobody, you should not watch sausage and laws being made. Those two things are as messy as can possibly be. But typically that's what, even at the state level, what departments do. They decide they want to advance a particular idea, and then they let their staff mold a proposal that gets ultimately taken to the legislature and beaten up again. But trying to make that proposal around this table you're going to end up getting frustrated, I think, trying to do something like that. Because all the pieces have to fit together perfectly before you'll get a coalition together that will actually support moving forward. So give us the authorization to start working on something like that, and we would. And that's the kind of thing, the same thing, authorization to move forward on doing something with respect to the parks. We would do that. And I would take exception to the idea that you can't or shouldn't budget for future potential wage increases. You don't necessarily, what you don't want to do is say, we're going to budget a 5% increase in our wage rates. You don't say that publicly, because then the unions are going to say, well, we want the entire 5%. But you do set forth a budget that has some expectation of what you're going to have to pay in the future, rather than budgeting for the present, knowing you're going to have to do a budget amendment in the future. That is definitely not the intent of the Uniform Budgeting Act. That's not what. It's a actual reasonable expectation of what you're going to spend in your fiscal year, which is a calendar year, of course. But it's budgeting what you expect that you will expend, not what you already have, what you have expended in the past, knowing that you're going to have to amend it into the future. That is not what the Uniform Budgeting Act asks you to do, or requires you to do, frankly.
Go ahead, Commissioner Russell.
Yeah, I certainly would like our administrator to get legal opinion and to explore options and come back with some recommendations. But we can't design an early childhood program at this table. We've got an early childhood development commission filled with 18 or 19 people in the county, educators, young childhood people, doctors, dentists. We need to work with them. And likewise, when we talk about housing, we can't do that at this table. We need to go to the housing experts. When they come to the parks, we need to check with our Parks Commission. I think it's dangerous for us to sit at this table and mess with programs that have a whole history and a whole background. But I would love to have our administrator work with the Early Childhood Development Commission, check with legal, come back and say, here are some options. Here's what the commission said. Here's what the school principals are saying about kindergarten readiness. Here's what the early childhood providers are saying. And then we can make whatever decision we want to make. But let's make it an informed decision.
And vouchers are not what people voted for.
There was $20,000 left in the budget, and people were saying,
What could we do with that?
this was never to be an ongoing program, and I sure am uncomfortable with people talking about it like it is.
It is not what people voted for.
And it is not our right to take something that people voted for that they knew was going to help our children and our young families and decide we want to change it. That's not our role.
I don't think we're talking about changing what's been done in the past, but adding to.
Well, we had a little extra 20,000
I don't want to build that into a permanent budget.
To your comment though, I mean, vouchers are in their budget, so, I mean, it's gonna be a part of the discussion. Based on what our administrator said, I think the wise thing would be to do is to check with legal counsel to see, is that an avenue? How far can it go before we even start planning here type of thing?
Yeah.
To Commissioner Bunning, Commissioner Campbell's point, to see how far can we go with that.
Because when you start talking about what people voted for, you really have to look at what was on the ballot. And you should very carefully read the ballot language. It's very expansive in terms of what you can do with that money. Now, I agree that there are program expectations that have been there from the beginning. And again, I don't hear anybody necessarily saying those should change, but they should be added to with another component. So that's the only thing that I would be looking at from an administrative perspective. Is there a way to spend that money? Is there room in that millage to do so?
Well, you could always ask for more, expand the millage, because they've never asked for everything they're supposed to get, but I don't think we want to increase taxes.
All right, Commissioner Bunning's had his hand up for a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Wessel that it would be a good idea to talk to them about what we're talking about. You know, and when you talk about the ballot proposal, I agree. It was, parenting communities was never mentioned in it. So does that mean we shouldn't do parenting communities? I mean, that's trying to spin it around, because it mentions early childhood development, and that's what it says. And now it's supporting parenting communities, which was never mentioned in any ballot proposal. So
That's the vehicle for development.
well, that's not what they use in Grand Rapids, so it doesn't have to be.
Commissioner Campbell?
And I suggest that if you could also take a good long look at what they do in Grand Rapids as you're doing this, because I think they've been very successful.
They have.
I think this discussion depends which seat you're sitting in, and I think it's important we both see the view from each seat. There's an inside seat, and that inside seat are folks who are professionals in the business, the folks who train for and are educated in early childhood, and they had a view, and God bless them. What I'm saying is the average person who voted for it had an outside view. They're not involved in the education of kids, and you tell them early childhood, and you're going to help families, and their view is, okay, you're going to help them as in, so the parents can go to work and the kids have good care. They're going to think of child care. So I think there is two different views on what this, regardless of what's in the, and you have to stay within the law of what the millage said. But I think there was two views of that millage, and I think a lot of people held that outside view, that early child care meant you're going to care for my child, as in you're going to care for him.
Go ahead.
Maybe this would be an appropriate time for me to kind of articulate to you what I think my job is. Because I'm hearing a lot of comments about how we would do something like this. I view my job as reporting to a seven-headed hydra, okay? What I've heard here this afternoon, you all have different opinions on how we would approach this particular issue. And not only, you're also articulating the fact that there are outside influences that have perhaps an 8th, 9th, 10th, 12th, 13th opinion on how this issue should be addressed. What I think a good administrator will do, and what I hope to bring to you, is the ability to take those 13, at least 7, but perhaps as many as twice that, opinions on how to address an issue, work on it, and then present to you proposals that would satisfy all of those, or tell you it can't be done. There are competing interests that are diametrically opposed that will not mesh. And so here's where your decision points are going to be. Option 1 will ignore these concerns. Option 2 will address everything but this concern. Option 3 is to do nothing because it's unresolvable. That's what I view my role in service to you as a commission, how it works, and what I would like to have the authority to do those kind of things for you. That's what I think an administrator does. And this is a really good example of how you can best use your administrator to resolve an issue like this.
I don't think we do that right here, though, as far as a motion at this particular
No,
meeting.
you don't. I just get I get a consensus, and that's what I tried to do, again, with the budget process, was to interview all of you, get an idea of what your interests were, how you wanted to approach the budget, and then create a process.
And
That
could
you
we,
ultimately did, that
Can
you
we-
ultimately did approve.
can we do it tonight? That's my only question. Or is this something that, just to give you some parameters to go study the topic and give us some options?
I have an idea of where you want to proceed, and I can certainly do that. I can certainly do that.
Would you feel better with a motion? And
I don't think that's necessary. You know, if I just have, what I really would want is an apparent consensus to at least move forward on that basis.
Yeah, because my question to you is, do you feel like you get a consensus of the board here, what next steps are for you? Because I don't feel like, yeah, you don't need a motion. I just want to make sure you understand where we're coming from and the duties that we're assigning you to get some answers on.
I
Do you
think
feel like you have that from the board?
I think I do right now, yes.
So do we all agree we want to move forward on the software update?
Let's finish this first.
But I mean, that would be something we want him to budget in.
Well, that'll be a part of the budget process. That's not, that'll come up when we go through that process, and he's got those priorities that he's written down, and that'll be a part of the process, because multiple ones of us have brought that up, so it will be. It'll come down to the discussion part when we get to that, where the majority falls in that, so.
Well, we've been talking about that for 4 or 5 years.
Commissioner Bunny?
Yeah, and one thing, this is a, $700, $800, I don't know, $900,000 thing that we just hand out. So I do think and I don't know if this
are
would
you
ever
talking about
happen.
now you're talking about the software?
I'm talking about early childhood.
Okay, all right.
That's a
We
million.
haven't changed it, and we could, and we could actually put that out for bids and get other people who might do it just as well or better. That can always be done, because it doesn't have to be just handed to them and they set the budget. I mean, if you look into it, I don't know that would happen or not. That could definitely be done.
Yeah, you could start all over. They have staff, they have relationships with people. They've been working with families for 3 or 4 years now. Yep, you could throw it all out and start all over.
Commissioner Wessel?
Well, I want to go on record as supporting the administrator's idea that he can come back, talk to people. It's depending on who we talk to in the community, we hear much different things. I got a call this morning, one of my colleagues was at a township board meeting and said, I want 100% of the early childhood money to go to vouchers. And they called me in a panic, and they thought that meant that we're going to lay off people and close down our program. I want to see a proposal that we can all talk about here and not try to design it right at this table.
Right.
All right. So with my understanding, the administrator, he's got a consensus, so. Any other topics anybody wishes to address, priorities?
I like Gwen's, is that, I did not see that software in this budget. Is it there someplace?
I don't believe it is.
No, but that's
Okay.
something that, yeah, we'll
Yeah,
have to
okay.
budget for.
I'm
That's
just
priority.
trying again to get the feel, you know, you're 1.1 million in the hole, and we haven't put in something that's one of our priorities, so, okay. I didn't see it either, that's what was my question.
Mr. Wessel?
One other thought, I mentioned MERS was on my list, and then Gwen said, we always pay extra if we win at the end of the year, but I think that, we gotta stay out of debt. I think that ought to be part of our initial budgeting.
I think there's.
And there's some in there, but I don't
see-
know that it's gonna keep up.
I see 250,000.
And it's annual,
Yeah.
and I can tell you what years you did make an extra, payment, if you'd like to.
But
250 is budgeted.
But our percent funded this year went down a little bit. So what I'm saying is I don't think that's enough. And we ought to budget that at the beginning.
Well, I think what I'm hearing, tell me if I'm wrong, is what you'd like to do is to determine a threshold percent funding and budget to that. You know, maybe it's 150,000 this year, maybe it's 300,000, you know, and maybe it'll be different next year. Instead of planning, it sounds like what I'm hearing you say is instead of planning on a fixed amount every year, regardless of what our status is, you want to budget to a target percentage of funding. Is that?
How much?
Well, I don't know, but I was disappointed, and I don't have these numbers, but we went backwards this year, didn't we? On our percent
Percent
funded.
funded for MERS.
Liability with MERS.
I believe you're correct, but the one thing I would say from my perspective, if you're anywhere over 80%, you're doing good. You're doing fine. And I think we went from 90 to 88 or something of that nature.
Well, and the actuarial you're looking at is as of 12/31/23. It's trailing.
And which it always will. It'll be at least a year behind.
And prevailing interest rates has a lot to do with the valuation of the portfolio.
And the stock market.
Precisely. So on that, what I think you would want is something that connects your objective to maintain a certain percentage of funding in the retirement, in the MERS retirement, and budget to that number rather than an arbitrary figure.
Historically, if I remember right, and you might correct this if I'm wrong, but is that we waited till the end of the year to see if there had been too many things out of contingency, whatever, and then if there wasn't, then we would take the amount. I remember one year it was 100,000, one 150, and generally it was 250,000. But it was always dependent on how the year went, how much was taken out of it.
We haven't done that since the clerk's office has been in control of finance.
Haven't done it?
That has not happened since it was the clerk's office.
Well, anyway, that's.
And John agrees, no one took the initiative that the clerk and the treasurer did to pay that down.
And that's what I'm telling you should
That's
be
what
done.
left, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what, I mean, we could go back to that system then, I would say. I would think that would be good if we don't have any emergencies, we don't have any big problems, and we have money left in contingency, so we move that to MERS, you know.
I do know historically it has been a November decision,
Correct.
from what I can tell from the records I looked at.
That's
Yes.
when the cash is there to make that deposit, that's correct. But before year end, in 2021, before it switched out of the clerk and out of the treasurer, we would look at to see what was still in, like how the budget was looking, and if there was additional funds, either between DTR or the general fund, we make additional payments. And I'm just giving that as historical value.
Right. And sometimes it was 500,000, as I recall.
Yep.
think that was under ordinance.
Yeah, that's been a long time since we had a
Yeah.
couple new roofs.
Yeah.
All right. You got any other comments?
Well, I mean, something like she said, the roof is now gonna be 20 years old, you know, or close to it. So we have to start looking at that because, I mean, that's an expensive thing to replace. And it, you know, usually the life of them is about, if they say 30 is is what they are, but they usually don't, they start leaking before that 30 years comes.
Yeah, I think 20 is usually when you want to start
Right.
thinking about it,
It's,
so.
yeah, so that would be something, and we can look at, in 2028, I believe, the jail will be paid off. So, and that's a $400,000 a year payment.
Yep, and it's in 27.
Is it 28?
Yeah. 27, that's what he's saying. Yeah. First year you don't have it.
Right.
I
So-
thought it was sooner.
We, you know, we could make a plan or an idea that that's, you know, money could be used to go towards the new roof. You know, we know when we did the jail there, it was $1 million, so,
So does that be a priority?
yeah, you know, I think that could be.
Okay.
But that's the kind of thing that could come out of DTR if we had to. If you plan for it.
Hey, John, can you come up here? Can we talk to you just for a second on DTR? That's a big part of our CIP, and we're kind of talking about CIP.
Thank you.
Go for it. Yeah,
Well, my question was, we're talking about incorporating DTR so that we can budget. And I know it varies depending on the economy and things like that, but if you're gonna take it over the course of 5 years or 10 years, what is about average that would be available and keep you financially sound as far as making townships, villages, other municipalities whole?
So we do have a policy that most of our tax and previous board have worked through. And it gives the board and me some parameters as to like what our operating amount should be. And it's like 1.7 times the 3-year rolling average of settlement is what I want my balance to be at the end of the year. Above that, I think it's fair to say that that's marketable securities that we use for investment, that could be used for projects, that could be used for everything other than operations. It should not supplement operations. As far as a target figure, you could easily see anywhere from $500,000, you know,
$500,000 to what?
and up.
Okay.
In interest, admin, that we collect on an annual basis from the delinquent payers. That is the revenue that grows the fund. An annual appropriation of those funds to the 470 or to MERS or something like that would be fine. But again, we just haven't had that conversation. It's about planning, transparency, and having, you know, the commonality goal. You know, we're going to do this in 3 years. You know, let's save for it. And I got a plan, so I can create a money market or a CD or what have you, and put that off because we know that that money is going to be used. I earn interest, and that, you know, continues to do. Right now, we have something illiquid. In the past practice, January 1st, we allocate our entire budget for the full year. We don't do an appropriation, you know, for quarterly disbursements or transfers. We do 100% January 1. So all my cash is allocated. I have to maintain $10 million or more in the checking account to keep the general ledger from basically going upside down. there's a lot of things that we can do as a group to increase efficiencies, increase the decision models, you know, as far as like the metrics we're using to justify these expenditures, and revenues that are coming in, understand the timing of those, so that we can coordinate with the finance department to make sure that we're not spending before we get it in. You know, and it's a lot of things. Sorry, digress.
No, that was good.
So what do you like to keep as a general, like 6 million?
No, I'd be happy with 4. And we've got, between general fund, DTR, money market accounts, I think it's roughly 5 million right now. So general fund is really skinny. We got quite a bit in the checking account, but that's got to last us. Above and beyond that, I have a little bit of money markets. Take a few bonds maybe. And the DTR has got 3.8, you know, and that's what I draw down from for these capital projects. And otherwise, I just have to sit in there earning interest. Because I don't know, the board, previous boards have not given a directive and incorporated a CIP or projected over a 3 to 4 year period to understand, okay, our revenues have been trending this way. Our expenditures are trending this way. And project more than just a conversation of shoes or boots or travel. The isolated incidents that you guys look at are microscopic. You're turning the dial, but it's a tiny thing. We have to look at this from a holistic standpoint. I mean, to your guys' point, we do need an ERP system, an enterprise system that everybody is on. It communicates, it timestamps things, it gives everybody the proper control and purview before anything goes before you guys. I mean, it encompasses tax, accounting, HR, and not one vendor, you know, in the state of Michigan is got a package that also supports the GIS system that we use, and that's BSNA. Well, there's other software programs out there, I'd be more than happy to look at, but to your point, we need an upgrade. We need something to look at this system holistically and understand what the drivers are, where the numbers are, and what our statutory duties are, and go from their revenues and back into it. But loading the budget forward and just rolling everything from the previous year, you see microscopic changes in those budget line items. Some years they didn't use the postage supply as much, so that's trailing off. Or they're increasing postage because postage rates go up. And there's correlations, and you can find data. There's a lot of data in there. I mean, it's not, you know, the ideal tool for what you guys want to accomplish. But there are people out there smarter than me that know how to present that information. We have all the data. We have the history. We could have somebody look at our financials and look at, you know, the cost per capita. If we did a cost per capita for any one of our departments, how do we measure up against the rest of the state?
It's a good question.
It is an obvious question because to me, there are tons of other communities. We are on Pinky. We're on an island, no doubt. But there's other communities that can do things like Kent County with their early childhood. It's very progressive. You know, senior services, another community might be doing it differently. It's just having that view and the scope to understand that data. And the financial dashboard that the state uses is a good way to just thumb around and look for it. Anyway.
Would you be willing to present that to us at a work session?
Whatever you want.
I think that'd be helpful.
Could you include things in it, you know, like, say, the roof in 4 years or 5 years, Or, every year we're buying over $100,000 worth of furnaces. Maybe we need to replace that system completely, and if we plan for it over time, it's probably gonna be $4 million now.
Right.
But,
We can start putting it away now.
yeah,
We can, anticipate full exposure.
right.
I mean, there's other things that won't make it popular, like doing a study on our emergency services and 911. We have a complete system that operates today that burdens the general fund $1.2 million. That used to be sustained by millage. That millage had expired and the general fund assumed it. Well, we've kind of grown a lot of other things, and now that is weighing on us a little bit more than it used to.
Yeah, I don't think we ever had a village for it. I think there was one voted. Was there, there wasn't one?
The first one, Tom's trying to get out there,
Oh, and that passed?
yes, and then it did not renew.
Right,
So we just assumed it.
that's what it was, I think that was a renewal.
Yeah.
But just looking at, Matt's gonna throw something at me, but if we looked at online versus the expenditures, is there a fundamental way to facilitate that level of service with a less costly outcome? I don't know. There's smarter people out there, like I said. We just haven't asked ourselves that question.
Yeah, I've been asked about combining it with either Benzie or Grand Traverse, and could we do that?
Yeah, and there's tons of rumors, and Grand Traverse wants
So-
to build a new jail.
What you're also saying too, my understanding is, we could even, for this state program you're looking at, we could even look at our jail.
Yeah.
That's not being utilized probably too.
Well, that could be a complete study itself and understand, okay, how many beds are utilized, what's our overflow, what's the charges per bed, and drive metrics to make decisions. And the board understand, okay, we have this many unoccupied beds, it's costing the taxpayers X money. Do you have that figure yet? No, we don't, because we've never looked at it. But we can with the data we have, and probably what's smarter than me, a CPA or actuarial PhD, I don't care, to derive some more statistics to say what these empty beds are costing us. How do we justify it? And I'm not picking on any one department or anything, but in my department, how do we look at it and look at taxes? Well, I can work with you and justify the needs of my staffing level. That makes up 70% of my budget. The rest of 30% is contractual, attorney fees, travel, printing, publishing, postage, all that little stuff. But 70% of everybody's budget is roughly salaries, fringe benefits, and wages.
That's how it's done.
Yeah. So, I mean, in my opinion, we have a lot of opportunity. And it's a difference where we have been and what we've looked at previously, and to just explore like a little deeper dive. Maybe look at it from a different perspective. But that's my recommendation.
Thank you. Any other
Did
priorities?
you want
out
to
there?
say something, Kathy?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand raised.
This is one of those humility moments, when you're sitting and you're listening to comments, and Commissioner Campbell asked me about the ARPA money. So I thought, well, while we're discussing, I would just look at the revenues, and yes, we zeroed those out. And then I went to emergency services and saw that the line item was not zeroed out. So I'll probably be either the most popular person in the room, or you'll all go in the background and say, So I will get you new pages tonight and make sure that you have the correct figures, and I'll zero that out in emergency. So the proposed lien on the fund balance is substantially different.
We're doing a heck of a lot better, aren't we?
So like I said, in all humility, I apologize. I do remember zeroing out the revenue side, but obviously, because of your question, I just had one of those, moments. So I apologize, and I'll get you new pages, and on page 107, in your revenue section, if you want to be showing that $117,000. And fund balance, that should make everybody feel a little more, whew, because I was a bit stunned with that number when I first
Yeah.
balanced the budget. So again, in all humility, I apologize. And I'll get you new pages tonight. And if the paper could work with me on the proposed, thank you. Thank you.
Is that the revenue summary?
Yes, page 107.
One.
Thank
Okay.
you. You made me have a moment.
I had one when I looked at it, so.
And bring it to my attention, it helps me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the balance fund forward is changing or what?
Yes, 317,000 and change.
More?
Less.
Well, that'd be quite a
It'll
bit
be
less.
317 instead of 1.2.
Oh,
It's significant.
okay.
That's why I wanted to bring it up
Okay,
and make
I
my
see what you
apology
mean.
in public.
Don't worry about apology, we just need. to
Does
get it
Alan
right.
get half of that?
Yeah, what's the finder's fee? Half, take anything.
I was going to say this document is about as good as the moment you print the thing, as things change, as we're moving through it, and I tell my staff there's motion and erosion, you know.
Appreciate you bringing it up right now, actually.
I'm glad we didn't get too much further into this,
Yeah.
because I was just sitting here doing math while the treasurer was speaking, and I thought, this is significant, I need to say something.
Well, I appreciate you bringing it up. Appreciate that.
It's not that I leave my neck down money.
What are you gonna do for tonight?
I'll be sitting here with you.
Sorry about that.
If we'd gone the other way, this might not be as pleasant.
I think at this courthouse, we've had swings both ways over the years.
Any other priorities before we move on? Well said, Administrator.
I believe so.
All right. With that, we'll move on to final public comment. All right. Commissioner comments.
See y'all soon.
I just do want to make a note. I had somebody reach out to me that is well versed in, you're gonna have to help me on the acronyms, GFOA or
GFOA,
GFOA.
Government Finance.
Okay.
Officials Association.
And they sent me something that I want to make sure everybody gets a copy of, but I'm going to see if they can potentially maybe address the board next week when we have our budget session in the morning, just for 15 minutes, give us a general overview. But they kind of did a rough draft, and they just kind of want to present something that they hope that we can address in our budget for this year. So I'll try to have Lauren or somebody make copies and have everybody a copy. But from my understanding, she just wants to do a quick 15-minute overview type thing. So maybe we can do that at the first part of our budget session next week or something. So other than that, any other commissioner comments? All right, we're adjourned.